Hey everybody, it's Mike. All right, so today I want to talk to you about something called a super empath. I don't know if you've heard of this. I've just recently come across this. And the way that I came across it was because I'm seeing a lot of people on the channel who are, of course, commenting, and I love the comments. Please keep the comments coming. And there's some people who identify as empaths. Some people identify like myself, identify as codependents, and some people identify themselves as empaths. And they, in fact, have a very difficult time with the idea of being a codependent. And there's other people who I've seen who have say that they used to be codependents, but now they see themselves more as empaths. So, obviously, empath can mean a bunch of things. It literally means to feel within. Empath, to feel within. It means to be able to go into somebody else's shoes and empathize with what they would be feeling and what they would be going through and what they might be thinking, etc., what it might be like to have their experience. And so there's, an empath can be somebody who just cares about others. But more often than not, I find that people who identify as empaths will also classify themselves almost as being psychic. Not quite, but more like I can feel what other people are feeling. And not just that, but I'm drawn to the underdog. I'm drawn to people in crisis, people who need help. I feel for them. They feel compelled to help the less fortunate in whatever way. And so the idea is because you're made up that way, the borderline or even the narcissist will be somebody who pulls you towards them and or manipulates you easily and or etc. etc. So I want to talk a little bit more about what it means to be an empath and see what some of the ideas are online about what that means. So before we go any further, this channel is devoted to non-borderlines who have been or are currently in a romantic relationship with somebody who is suffering from untreated severe borderline personality disorder. If you're in treatment, this isn't about you. If you're happy in your relationship, this isn't about you. It's about non-borderlines and those who have gone through a toxic, challenging experience and are seeking to find power within themselves. Let me be really clear. This channel is not about bagging on borderlines, although I can be very direct and very clear about the very damaging nature of being with an untreated borderline. This channel is devoted to helping people heal. So if you're coming on this channel because you want to, feel free to get out your anger and your hurt and your pain. This is a safe place to do that. But if that's all you want to do, you're probably going to get bored with this channel pretty quick because that's not at all where I'm coming from. I started this channel because I came out of a challenging romantic relationship with somebody who, as it turns out, was an untreated borderline. And it was devastating to me, and it ripped my soul to shreds and did all kinds of horrible things I didn't think I was going to recover from. I am now in a state of recovery. I am happy with my life. I don't think about the other person. I don't carry any resentment. I don't have a scar in me. I'm not wounded. I'm not pining, waiting for her to get a hold of me. I've recovered, what the real pain was about that. So if you're out of the relationship months, weeks, years later, and you're still walking around wounded, wanting to talk crap about them and what they did, then you can do that here because that's the first step. But the second step is then to recover. And so I share with you what I've done to recover. All right, that's what's going to be up here at this link soon. Be patient with me. So let's talk about empaths. So, I've given you what the idea of the empath is. Linguistically, empath just means somebody who basically is able to think about other people. Now, we non-borderline partners of borderlines oftentimes have the experience that borderlines do not have empathy for us. And so I've made a couple of videos about, are they sociopathic? Are they sociopaths? But definitely when they're regressed and acting from their mental disorder, you can definitely have the experience of being with somebody who doesn't have any empathy for you at all. And so you see yourself as the opposite of that. You see yourself as somebody who is full of empathy. That's what you're there for. You're there in the relationship to try and help and heal somebody who needs your love and your help, right? So you consider yourself an empath. So I went online and I found some definitions about if you're an empath. So see if you relate to this. And if so, according to this, you're an empath. It says, you're an empath if you are an emotional support to those in need. Everyone tends to open up to and confide in you, even if they are strangers or you don't know them very well. You often feel unexplainably moody or physically ill. You can easily read other people, seeing through their lies, masks, and pretensions. You are deeply affected by the emotions of others that linger in your mind and body and are felt directly in your heart. You sometimes develop sympathy pains when a person close to you is mentally or physically sick. I've had that happen before. You have extraordinary intuitive abilities. You often just know things that lead you to predict events. You can see into the hidden nature of a person. You are self-sacrificial. You put others' needs and happiness above your own. You are an excellent listener. You are driven to support the underdog, the downcast, or emotionally hindered in society. You have a love for nature and animals. You are easily overwhelmed in crowds of people and tend to feel anxious, irritable, impatient, and other varieties of emotions. You may feel fatigued, exhausted, or heavy inside. Find it intensely painful to watch or read about cruelty, torture, violence, or tragedy. You are creative, solitary, and spiritual. You are able to tune into emotions of others remotely. You know, what's interesting is that though a lot of these things are also true about borderlines. I wonder what that means. Okay, so here's another list. Let's read from that. So you heard me read that list and, make mental note of how much you relate to on that. Here's another list. Let's see, listen to this and see if this also applies to you. You feel responsible for other people, their feelings, thoughts, actions, choices, wants, needs, well-being, and destiny. You feel compelled to help people solve their problems or by trying to take care of their feelings. You find it easier to feel and express anger about injustices done to others than about injustices done to you. You feel safest and most comfortable when you are giving to others. You feel insecure and guilty when someone gives to you. You feel empty, bored, and worthless if you don't have someone else to take care of, a problem to solve, or a crisis to deal with. You often are unable to stop talking, thinking, and worrying about other people and their problems. You lose interest in your own life when you are in love. You stay in relationships that don't work and tolerate abuse in order to keep people loving you. You leave bad relationships only to form new ones that don't work either. So, do you relate to these lists? If so, let me go back to the first one. I get this a lot from people, especially people who have not investigated codependence or have not had any treatment in it, or people usually. What's the ironic thing is, this is my experience. I'm just going to be honest with you. The people who most identify with being empaths are also the people who are most likely to say the most judgmental things about borderlines, that they're evil, that they're sociopathic, that they are narcissistic, that they plan out your demise, that they are trying to harm you, that they know what they're doing. These are the same people who then turn around and say that they are empaths. Do you see a disconnect there? So there's a couple of things about this which don't make sense. So if you've been with a borderline for any length of time and you've been damaged and hurt more than once, like you keep going back and you know, as you say, we're hoovered back in, which, you know, you choose to go back even if they hoover you, but you're hoovered back in and you get hurt again the same way over and over and over again, right? So then if that's the case, then how is it that if you're an empath, as it says here, you can easily read other people, seeing through their lies, masks, and pretensions? Because if you truly were an empath, then you would know, according to you, they know what they're doing. They can't help themselves, but they know what they're doing and they're trying to hurt you. And certainly sometimes they do seem to act as though they really are trying to hurt you. But if you're an empath and you can see into other people's lies, their masks and pretensions, how was it you weren't able to see into the mind of the borderline who was setting you up to harm you, or was cheating on you, or was lying to you, or whatever else they might have been doing? How do you explain that disconnect? Let me just give you, here's some more. You have extraordinary intuitive abilities. You often just know things that lead you to predict events. So what was it that didn't allow you, if you're an empath and you were hurt multiple times over and over and over again by somebody who supposedly could have chosen to do things differently? How is it that if you have these intuitive abilities and you know how to predict events, how was it that you weren't able to predict what this person was going to do? Over here it says you can see into the hidden nature of a person. So if you're able to see into the hidden nature of a person, how is it you didn't see they were whatever you want to call it? I think they're mentally ill. You can say that they're whatever they are. How is it you couldn't see into the hidden nature of a person? Well, there may be two things going on. One is these are just your projections about yourself that aren't accurate. So when I say to people that codependents are actually very selfish, they only get involved in toxic relationships because they have an emotional agenda and they bypass all of the red flags because what they really want to do is force somebody to love them. They want to take somebody hostage. And people who have mental disorders and people who have problems and issues and addictions and other kinds of problems are vulnerable people that we hope we can take hostage and make them love us by fixing them. Now you're going to respond to that and say, that's not at all. You're making it sound like I'm this horrible person. No, I'm an empath. I'm only here to help others. I feel for other people. So either this idea of being able to feel other people's feelings and know what they're going to do is all a projection. Or if it's true and you really do have intuitive abilities and you really can see into people, so much more it explains that you had a hidden agenda, that you had a personal, selfish, hidden agenda that stimulated you to look beyond all of the intuitive signs that were coming to you that this person was going to be bad news and was going to hurt you. So which one is it? So think about that for a little bit. Next one is, let's talk about some general things about empaths. And then let's compare the two lists. The first one here, you're an empath. You're emotional support to those in need. Everyone opens up to you and confides in you. You are deeply affected by the emotions of others that linger and are felt directly in your heart. You are self-sacrificial. You put others' needs and happiness above your own. You are driven to support the underdog, downcast, or emotionally hindered in society. There's a phrase that has come up here, and I've detected an air of condescension and self-righteousness and superiority when people have gotten angry with me for whatever. Either I'm stigmatizing the borderline, or I'm stigmatizing the codependent, depending on whatever. But it's usually a codependent that is saying, for one of these reasons, but says, I'm an empath and I speak out for those who can't speak for themselves. So that's what this reminds me of here, which is you are driven. You are driven to support the underdog, downcast, or emotionally hindered in society. You have a love for nature and animals. Well, of course you do, because nature and animals will love you no matter what. I mean, stick your husband and your dog in the trunk for 2 hours. When you open up the trunk, only the dog is going to be happy to see you, right? Animals will love you no matter what you do. You can't do anything wrong. So of course, that's easy. Of course you love them. They're easy to love. So anyway, all right. So there's that. That is one list of being an empath, and then here's the second list again. So remember what I said here, which I think stands out, which is being affected by the emotions of others that linger in your mind and body and are felt directly in your heart. You are driven to support the underdog, the downcast, emotionally hindered in society. You are an emotional support for those in need. You are, let's see, what else? You are self-sacrificial. This is an empath here saying. This is a characteristic of an empath. You are self-sacrificial. You put others' needs and happiness above your own. So this is coming from a website called Super Empath. So this is talking about what an empath is. All right. Now let's talk about the other list here, which says, now see if you find a resemblance here. You feel responsible for other people, their feelings, thoughts, actions, choices, wants, needs, well-being, and destiny. You feel compelled to help people solve their problems or by trying to take care of their feelings. You find it easier to feel and express anger about injustices done to others than about injustices done to you. You are driven, like it says in the other list, you are driven to support the downtrodden in society. You feel safest and most comfortable when you are giving to others. You feel insecure and guilty when someone gives to you. You feel empty, bored, and worthless if you don't have someone else to take care of, a problem to solve, or a crisis to deal with. You are often unable to stop talking, thinking, and worrying about other people and their problems. You lose interest in your own life when you are in love. You stay in relationships that don't work and tolerate abuse in order to keep people loving you. You leave bad relationships only to form new ones that don't work either. So, many of you probably guessed. The first list is actually from a website called The Super Empath, and again talks about people who, among other things, it talks about them having feel unexplainably moody. This is from Super Empath. Unexplainably moody or physically ill. You feel fatigued, exhausted, or heavy inside. You are easily overwhelmed in crowds of people and tend to feel anxious, irritable, impatient, and other varieties of emotions. This is supposed to be a good thing. It doesn't sound like a good thing to me. It sounds like somebody who doesn't have good boundaries. As a shaman, which I am, and a qigong master and a yoga teacher, it sounds like somebody whose energetic boundaries are very weak. It does not sound like somebody who is strong. So even if this is right, and these people do pick up on the emotions of others, as a shaman, if you were to go through this list, I'm going to say this is somebody who doesn't have a strong, who has very weak aura, and they can't protect themselves from all of the emotions that are flying at them. As somebody who's been in therapy for a really long time, I'm actually going to see this as projection. The idea that somebody having an emotion can float across the room to such a degree that you become overwhelmed with their emotion. So if you're not familiar with the term unconscious projection, look it up. But unconscious projection is when you project onto other people your own feelings. Feelings that you are unable or unwilling to tolerate within yourself. A good example is you're talking to somebody and the person who's unconsciously projecting will be talking to somebody and they will say, "You seem really angry to me." And the other person won't be angry. What'll happen is there will be something about the other person that stimulates the anger within the person who has unconscious projection. And because they can't relate to their own feelings of anger, they feel that there's anger floating around the room, and they look at the other person and they say, "You're angry." That's called unconscious projection. Another is when somebody starts to have feelings, like somebody will start to talk about things that bother them or things that are upsetting them. And then the person with unconscious projection will start saying, "Wow, you're so angry. I can't handle, you got to stop complaining. I can't listen to this. It's too much for me." Because what's happening is that they're having their feelings and the empath is incapable of just allowing the other person to have their, whatever the feelings are that make them uncomfortable, right? So this is called unconscious projection. So you may have guessed the other list here is characteristics of codependence. You feel responsible for other people, their feelings, thoughts, actions, choices, wants, needs, well-being, and destiny. You feel compelled to help people solve their problems or by trying to take care of their feelings. An empath is going to say, "No, I care about those who are in pain, and I'm drawn to help those who are in pain." But somebody used the term trauma responder, which I really love. And that's exactly what it is. You're looking for the trauma so you can go respond to it. Why? Unconscious projection. You have trauma within yourself that you're unable or unwilling, or you were shamed out of feeling. And so you're drawn to try and help it, fix it in others, because it's a way, it's like sympathetic magic. On an unconscious level, you're hoping if you can fix their problem, you'll feel better. This is why you have to look at, if you want to call yourself an empath and you want to use that as a reason, and you don't want to have a label like, "Oh, I'm a codependent and that's bad and that's weak," and it has the term dependent in there, and I don't want to be dependent upon somebody else. You don't want to buy into that, so you buy into the idea of, the empath, the super empath, the red cape flowing in the wind. You have no needs of your own whatsoever. You are only here to help others. And I have, I hear people, they ask questions, on the channel. They ask questions like, "So why won't the borderline allow you to love them? Or why do they split on you? Or why do they hoover you back if you have loved them with all of your heart and you have done nothing but been kind and helpful?" And they paint themselves as these perfect people that have nothing but purity and nothing but God's love coming out of them. They have no personal desires or needs or anything like that. They're just their unconditional love. They throw out the word unconditional love all the time. Well, that's called projection. If you are somebody who claims to have unconditional love, and yet you can also say in the same sentence, "This person really hurt me and destroyed me," your love was not unconditional. Unconditional means you want something in return. Unconditional means you don't want something in return. Freudian slip. Conditional means you want something in return. And I'm telling you, all healthy love is conditional. There's nothing healthy about unconditional love. The only being in the world that should be able to have unconditional love is a mother. Most of us, if we're on this channel, our mothers weren't so good at that. But that's the only being in the world that's going to be able to have unconditional love, is a mother for an infant. The rest of the time, we have conditions to our love. And it is irrational, unreasonable, and delusional to think that you don't have a selfish condition on your love. I pointed this out to somebody earlier, in some videos before, and they said, no, you're right. I did have conditions, and my conditions were that they toe the line and they get it to, and I'm like, no, that's not it. You're still in denial. Conditions means you want them to love you. You want them to take care of you. You want them to fix you. You think you want to fix them, but the truth is you want them to fix you. And so by you chasing after them and trying to love them, you're hoping that they're going to then get it, turn around, and love you and fix you. What you are doing to them is what you want somebody to do to you. So, again, codependent. You feel responsible for other people. You're compelled to help people solve their problems. You find it easier to express anger about other people's problems than problems that happen to you. You feel safest and most comfortable when you're giving to others. You feel insecure and guilty when somebody gives to you. You feel empty, bored, and worthless if you don't have someone else to take care of, a problem to solve, or a crisis to deal with. You're often unable to stop talking, thinking, and worrying about other people and their problems. Why is that? Because when you talk about other people, it distracts you from your own pain. So what is my point in all of this? My point in all of this, and again, I keep seeing in the comments that people, codependents or empaths, especially when I turn the mirror on them and I say, listen, you're not as pure as you think you are. You have selfishness and your love is abusive. Because you're trying to force somebody who can't and doesn't want your love, keeps continuously hurting you. You're trying to force them to stand still and let you love them so that they'll love you back. That's abusive. It's controlling. It's manipulative. And people get very upset with me about that. And they want to say, no, that's not true. I just love them and blah, 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 blah. I forgot I had a point I was going to make. But, what I'd like to say is that those people who talk like that, I'm just telling you straight out, the people who claim to be empaths, I haven't seen it ever be different yet. Everybody who denies being a codependent, who says, yes, I was with this person and this borderline was horrible to me in all of these ways and they're so messed up and they're so evil in all of these ways, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, they'll then turn around and say, but I'm not codependent, I'm an empath. I'm only here, I love them unconditionally. I just give and give and give to them and all they do is hurt me and blah, 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 blah. That's what I hear. The people who claim to be empaths are the people who are the same ones who are filled with rage and anger about the fact that they think the borderline knows what they're doing and they can choose to do something different. And my question to you is holding on to this idea of being an empath, does it bring you happiness? Does it give you the ability to make more money and be happy? Does it give you the ability to be healthier? Does it give you the ability to sleep better? Does it give you the ability to be more successful in relationships? Does it give you the ability to heal and move on and never run into those relationships again? There's no shortage of people on here. I know that you're listening to me. You've not only been in one relationship with a borderline, you've been in 5, 6, 7. You've gone from borderlines to narcissists to NPDs and back and forth. And you want to tell me it's because you're an empath. And my question to you is being an empath really helping you live your life better? I have reached a state of what I call recovery. And I did 3 things consistently. I went to therapy with a trained psychologist who knew how to deal with codependence with cluster B personalities. I went and worked the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous, coda.org. Go there yourself, check it out, it's free. And then I had a spiritual practice that I did every day. And I was ruthless with myself. Instead of focusing on what she did to me and how she could have done things differently, you can see the change. There's a change in the beginning where at least 1 or 2 of my videos I say she planned it out. That she planned out my demise. I don't believe that anymore. And it's because I have no residual pain. I don't have any scars inside of me. I'm not limping around emotionally. I'm not waiting for her to call. I even bypassed a borderline not too long ago. We went out on a few dates and I went, nope, this person's a borderline, and I walked away without a scratch. So those of you who really want to hold on to being an empath, take a look at that. You can find it yourself. Type in what makes an empath and read the things that you find about what defines an empath, and then type in what are the traits of codependency and read those. You're going to find they line up. The ones that are, there's going to be ones you're not going to want to hear, like my good feelings about who I am stem from being liked by you. That's obviously codependency. My good feelings about who I am stem from receiving approval from you. Now, codependents and denial don't want to admit to that, but they do want to admit to the idea of I feel safest and most comfortable when giving to others. I feel responsible for other people, their feelings, thoughts, actions, choices, wants, needs, well-being, and destiny. I feel compelled to help people solve their problems or by trying to take care of their feelings. We could put that could either be empath or codependent. And empaths and codependents share that same thing. From the codependent, they go, yeah, I have such bad boundaries that I distract myself from my own pain by focusing on other people. My entire worth comes from what other people think and feel, and it's my job to fix them. Whereas, let's look at this one. Here's one of my favorite ones. Empaths are deeply affected by the emotions of others that linger in your mind and body and are felt directly in your heart. That sounds like a horrible disease. It might as well use the word infected, are deeply infected by the emotions of others. That, from a psychological perspective, is absolutely projection. Because the truth is that we have the ability, all of us, to have the ability to go, wow, that person really has a lot of feelings, and then get on with our life. But if somebody's emotions have the ability to linger in your mind and body and are felt directly in your heart, if I follow that, it sounds like it gets in there and lingers and then rots. That's not the sign of a healthy, spiritual, happy person. Neither is it the sign of a healthy person that is easily overwhelmed in crowds of people, tends to feel anxious, irritable, impatient, and other varieties of emotions. By the way, again, this sounds exactly like a borderline. So if you read this and you see yourself, how is it that you don't see that in the borderline? Now you guys know, both of you guys are codependents. Because borderlines, we can say the same thing, borderlines. When they're love bombing you, they are emotional support to those in need. Everyone tends to open up to and confide in them, even strangers. You don't know them very well. I mean, when you met your borderline, you didn't know them very well, but they sat and listened to you and wanted to hear everything you had to say. They're an empath. They feel unexplainably moody or physically ill. Borderlines can easily read other people, seeing through their lies, masks, and pretensions, or they think they can. Borderlines are deeply affected by the emotions of others that linger in their mind and body and are felt directly in their heart. Borderlines sometimes develop sympathy pains. I don't know about that. Borderlines have extraordinary intuitive abilities. They often just know things that lead them to predict events. They can see into the hidden nature of a person. When they're love bombing, they're self-sacrificial. When they're love bombing, they put others' needs and happiness above their own. When they're love bombing, they are an excellent listener. When they are driven to support, or we could say identify, they are driven to identify with the underdog, downcast, or emotionally hindered in society. You see this? You empaths, you think you're so different and superior, because I wanted to talk about this earlier, but one of the things I see with codependents on this channel, on the comments, is they want to make a difference. No, I'm not as bad as the borderline. I'm not nearly as screwed up as them. I have a job. I have this. I'm put together. They're blah, blah, blah. And yet I am here looking at the page Super Empath. I'm describing both the codependent and the borderline. So, short answer is it's helpful for you to drop the delusion that you're flying around with a red cape and your job is just to take care of others, when in reality what's going on is you're projecting all of your pain and you're looking for somebody else to save so that you don't have to look at your own pain. And now that we've looked at the list, we see that borderlines and codependents share almost identically the same traits. The only difference is that the borderline splits. You take the splitting out of it, it's identical. So you are just as screwed up as them. And so the answer is to go no contact and heal yourself. And I've already given you the 3 things to do: therapy, 12 steps, and spiritual practice. Otherwise, I'm continue to leave comments and whatever agreements or disagreements. I'm going to start doing live streams now that we've gotten to the point where I can do that. And again, if you leave comments, if I think you're in denial, I'm going to tell you. If I think that you're passive aggressive, I'm going to tell you. And if I think that there's some education that you might need that might be helpful for you, I'm going to tell you. You are perfectly welcome to listen or not, subscribe or unsubscribe. But that's what I'm going to do because I'm enjoying it and it seems to be helping others. So that's it for me. I shall talk to you all later.